Welcome to 'Tis the Soundtrack, the podcast dedicated to digging deep and bringing you the merriest of music all year long. I'm your host, Kevin Williams, and today is November 1st, which means Halloween is over, my family gets a reprieve from me constantly playing the Over the Garden Wall soundtrack, and it's time once again for that most magical of fall holidays, Christmas Podcast Day.
It's Christmas Podcast Day!
Christmas Podcast Day.
Hey!
I want to thank Tim Babb and Jerry D for providing the official Christmas Podcast Day theme song. Christmas Podcast Day, celebrated each November 1st, is a day when members of the Christmas podcast community get together to release special episodes of their shows. Last year, I likened Christmas Podcast Day to a Whitman's holiday sampler, and in doing so, may have made some disparaging remarks about people who enjoy orange cream chocolates. So, I'd like to start this Christmas Podcast Day by apologizing to anyone I may have slighted. But more so, I want to recognize the spouses, partners, and significant others of those orange cream loving individuals. I can't imagine that's the only unhinged behavior you endure on a regular basis, and I respect your resilience. This year, in an attempt to keep things more neutral, I'll describe Christmas Podcast Day as an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's an opportunity to sample new episodes from all across the Christmas podcast community. If you find something you like, you can always go back for another helping or two, safe in the knowledge that no matter how much you consume, your risk of norovirus is way, way lower than the average trip through a Golden Corral. And with that, I'll scratch another name off my list of potential sponsors. This Christmas Podcast Day, the theme is It's a Wonderful Life. Several podcasts are releasing episodes today dedicated to the various television and movie parodies and adaptations. The Advent Calendar House Gang is covering the Psych episode, The Polarizing Express. On Closer to Christmas, Charlie is talking about the Garfield and Friends episode, It's a Wonderful Wade. Matt at the TGI podcast is covering the Season 4 opening episode of That 70s Show, simply titled It's a Wonderful Life. And if the 70s aren't your thing, over at Totally Rad Christmas, Jerry D is talking about the 1983 SCTV Christmas special, It's a Wonderful Film. Then there's Adam at Merry Britsmas, who has chosen the Season 3 closing episode of Basil Brush, It's a Wonderful Brush. Still more podcasts are covering other It's a Wonderful Life related topics. On Lost Christmas, Jeff is talking about The Greatest Gift. That's the Philip Van Doren Stern short story that's the basis for the It's a Wonderful Life film. And on Cozy Christmas, Art is covering the 1997 TV movie Merry Christmas, George Bailey, a live-action recreation of the Lux Radio Theater's 1947 production of It's a Wonderful Life. Speaking of which, that original Lux Radio Theater version, that's the topic of Troy's episode on Christmas Every Day. And then there's Can't Wait for Christmas, where host, comedian, and lover of all things Christmas, Tim Babb, is starting Muppet-Vember off with a bang. His episode not only covers the 2002 adaptation It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie, but Tim also has an interview with Jimmy Hawkins, the actor who played Tommy Bailey in the original 1946 film. If any of that sounds interesting, then I highly recommend you head over to ChristmasPodcast.com, where you can find all these Christmas Podcast Day episodes, plus dozens of other awesome Christmas podcasts by equally awesome Christmas podcasters. And with that, we'll jump into our Christmas Podcast Day topic, Fishbone, and their 1987 EP, It's a Wonderful Life.
The ice was freezing, my brother almost drowned. I jumped in to save him, on his way down. But then I went blind in a one-ear. Oh, what a wonderful life.
Fishbone is a hard band to describe. That's what I've learned while attempting to write this script, and rewrite it some more. It would be easy to just call them a ska band, or a ska punk band and be done with it, but that's like calling Final Fantasy Tactics just an RPG game. It's really just scratching the surface. Sure, there's a good helping of ska, but there's also enough funk to drown half of Parliament. Not to mention a healthy dose of 80s SoCal punk, some metal, and a sprinkling of jazz, soul, R&B, early alternative, new wave, you get the picture. Then filter all of that through a socially conscious lens that has been unapologetic in calling out racism, fascism, and inequality for over 45 years, and you're starting to get the idea of what Fishbone is all about. The band was formed in the LA area in 1979, when the founding members were still in junior high. The original lineup consisted of the Fisher Brothers, that's Philip and John Norwood, on drums and bass respectively, Kendall Jones on guitar, Walter Kibbe II on vocals and trumpet, Christopher Dodd on keyboard, trombone, and vocals, and Angelo Moore, Dr. Mad Vibe himself on saxophone, vocals, and the criminally underused theremin. I can't stress enough that this was a sextet of 14 and 15-year-old kids cranking out music with funky hooks, ska beats, and punk rock attitude at the dawn of the 1980s. Fishbone quickly became part of the 80s SoCal music scene, establishing friendships with other up-and-coming acts like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Jane's Addiction. Things really started to take off when they were signed to Columbia Records in 1983. They released their first self-titled EP in 1985, which contained the single Party at Ground Zero. This was followed up by the release of In Your Face, their first full-length album, in 1986. In 1987, Fishbone went on the road with the Beastie Boys as the opening act on their License to Ill tour. 1987 was also the year they released their It's a Wonderful Life EP. Before we dive into the record, I want to take a few minutes and run through the almost 40 years of Fishbone history that comes after that release. Since In Your Face in 1986, Fishbone has gone on to release another 7 full-length albums. I won't go over each one, but a few of my favorites include 1991's The Reality of My Surroundings, which saw the band pivot much farther into hard rock and metal.
I see the pestilence outside my window. I see the dawn meets cloud and leaves the blind. I see the shards of sad dreams in the streets. I face the morning with a
2000's, Fishbone and the Family Hood Nexperience present the Psychotic Friends Networks, which in addition to being a mouthful, included a dizzying array of guest artists. Artists like Donny Osmond, HR of Bad Brains, Gwen Stefani, George Clinton, Rick James, Chad, John, and Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Perry Farrell. And I have to mention this year's release, Stockholm Syndrome, where Fishbone add ragtime and rockabilly to their arsenal to deliver their political and social messages. And since we've invoked the name of Perry Farrell, I'll also mention that Fishbone played the original 1991 Lollapalooza tour, as well as the 93 tour, where they shared the main stage with Alice in Chains, Primus, Tool, Rage Against the Machine, and others. This happens to be where I first heard Fishbone. And no, 11-year-old me wasn't going to Lollapalooza, but 11-year-old me was completely obsessed with Primus. The Pork Soda album had just come out that spring, and I was sure people would be talking about it one day in the same breath as Sgt. Pepper or Pet Sounds. So, I ended up with a copy of the 93 tour promo CD, which not only contained Mr. Crinkle, a Primus track from said Pork Soda album, but also my introduction to Fishbone, the song Swim. In addition to Lollapalooza, they've also appeared on the Vans Warped Tour in '96 and 2007, as well as the 25th anniversary tour in 2019, and stops on this year's 30th anniversary tour. If you've never been to Lollapalooza, or the Warped Tour, or a Fishbone concert, you may still have seen the band perform in one of their many guest appearances in film or music videos. Fishbone's first theatrical performance was in the 1987 movie Back to the Beach. This was a parody of the 1960s beach party films and featured Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, both stars of the original genre. Fishbone performed a version of Jamaica ska on screen, with Funicello providing the vocals.
Not many people can cha-cha-cha. Not everybody can do the twist. But everybody can do the ska. It's the new dance you can't resist. Ska, ska, ska.
The following year, they appeared as the band Ranchbone in the John Cusack and Tim Robbins film Tapeheads. Members of the band have also made appearances in Idlewild, The Tripper, and I'm Gonna Get You, Sucka, while their iconic logo has graced the t-shirts of characters in even more films and television shows. Marlon Wayne's character, Seymour Stewart, wears a Fishbone shirt in Mo Money, as does Tim Robbins' character in Bull Durham. Ed Chigliak, Darren Burrow's character in Northern Exposure, can be seen wearing a Fishbone shirt throughout the series. And on A Different World, Freddie and Lena were both depicted as Fishbone fans. But the biggest Fishbone on-screen merch moment goes to John Cusack's character Lloyd Dobler in Say Anything, who sports a black Fishbone t-shirt in the film. No, it's not the shirt he wears during the iconic boombox scene. That happens to be a Clash t-shirt, but that scene does have an interesting Fishbone tie-in. Originally, Cusack wasn't a fan of the boombox scene, thinking it was too passive of a move for his character. Cameron Crowe, on the other hand, who wrote and directed the film, thought it could be the hallmark of the movie, and spoiler alert, he was right. And while Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes ended up being the song used in the film, for a period of time it was going to be a Fishbone track. To help convince Cusack, who was a Fishbone fan, to film the scene, Crowe told him they would use one of the band's songs. Now, there are some conflicting accounts from interviews with both Cusack and Crowe as to which song was going to be used, but from what I've been able to piece together, the song used on set for filming the scene was either Party at Ground Zero or Turn the Other Way. But Question of Life was the song used initially to score the scene. And, after seeing the scene, Cusack argued for a fourth, different Fishbone song to be used. There's a whole separate story about how Crowe convinced Peter Gabriel to grant clearance for In Your Eyes, but we're already deep into this episode and still haven't talked about the main topic, so I'll wrap up this section by saying that Fishbone did eventually make it into Say Anything, albeit not the boombox scene, with yet another song, Skankin' to the Beat, and there's a cool homage in Hot Tub Time Machine where Cusack's character Adam holds up a Fishbone t-shirt. And with that, let's dive into It's a Wonderful Life.
We gonna have a good life. We gonna have a good life. We gonna have a good life. We gonna have a good life.
As I mentioned at the top, the EP came out in 1987. It was Fishbone's third physical release after their self-titled EP and first full-length album. And it's a great example of how the band, even early on, was drawing from a wide range of musical styles. The EP clocks in under 15 minutes and contains just 4 tracks. It's a Wonderful Life, Gonna Have a Good Time, Slick Nick, You Devil You, Iration, and Just Call Me Scrooge. Starting with the title track, it tells the events of the film It's a Wonderful Life from George Bailey's perspective, saving Harry in the lake, losing the bank deposit, wrecking his car, getting punched, Clarence granting his wish, the realization that he does in fact have a wonderful life, all get mentioned.
Angel made me numb, the angel made me void. Got thrown out the bar, then I wrecked my car. Got socked in the jaw, cussed out by my mama. Someone stole my money, screamed out by my honey. Things was getting worse, things was getting worse, things was getting worse.
Of the tracks on the EP, It's a Wonderful Life is also stylistically closest to the rest of the music Fishbone was putting out at this point in their career. A big, funky bass line, lots of ska horns, and Angelo on lead vocals. It's also the only song from the EP to have a music video. The video, done in black and white, starts with the scene from It's a Wonderful Life where Mary plays the Buffalo Gals record in her living room. The rest of the video is a back-and-forth cut between scenes from It's a Wonderful Life and the band performing their song, ending abruptly with a needle scratch as Mary pulls the record off the player and smashes it. An interesting bit of trivia: the copyright for It's a Wonderful Life was not renewed in 1974, making the film public domain until Republic Pictures reasserted copyright in 1993. That's another story in and of itself, but the short version is that it allowed television stations to broadcast the film without paying royalties for almost 20 years. Which they took full advantage of, and which resulted in the movie's rise in popularity during that period. The 20-year lapse is also the reason Fishbone was able to use all the movie clips completely free in their music video, as well as the image of Mary breaking the record on the album sleeve. The next song on the EP, and my favorite of the 4 tracks, is Slick Nick, You Devil You.
Slick Nick stole the reindeer from the zoo.
The song tells the story of a Grinch-like Santa who not only steals Christmas, but televisions and stereos as well. Unlike Dr. Seuss's Grinch, instead of just stealing the candy from stockings, Slick Nick refills them with Mad Dog. I'm probably not doing the greatest job of selling it, but it really is a fantastic song. Jeff of the Lost Christmas podcast and I discussed it a bit on our Warped Tour episode earlier this year. It's a stripped-down, soulful R&B track, driven almost entirely by an electric organ and hand clap. And while quite different from most of the music Fishbone was releasing in the late 80s, it gave an early glimpse of the talent and variety of music the band would be producing over the next several decades. The third song on the EP, Iration, is almost more of a worship song than a Christmas tune, but still another great example of the band's talent.
So long since they've heard your word. So long since they felt your hand. So long since they seek your love and their faces are twisted.
We get soulful gospel lyrics over a reggae beat and some great horn work at the end. Again, there's nothing really Christmassy about this one. You could play this track, and I don't think anyone short of a diehard fan would know they were listening to Fishbone or a Christmas song.
Iration, jubilation. We have the foundation for a sovereign nation, and it's ruled by love. Jesus Christ from above, and the road to Zion is the one.
The final song on the EP, Just Call Me Scrooge, veers yet another musical direction with a straight-up funk track. If you created a Venn diagram of Parliament, Prince, Morris Day, and Christmas, that spot in the middle where they all overlap, that's where you'd find Just Call Me Scrooge.
Just call me Scrooge, 'cause Christmas is for fools. Just call me Scrooge, 'cause Christmas ain't my groove. Just call me Scrooge, take it, I don't dig. Just call me Scrooge, no, just call me Scrooge.
I just have to point out again the skill of this band. When this EP was recorded, they would have all been around 22, 23 years old. I came across a Fishbone discussion some time ago where a commenter described seeing them live as watching a bunch of guys dancing around on stage and having a great time while a CD played in the background. I think that's a fantastic description of how effortless they make it all look. It's a Wonderful Life was released on both vinyl and cassette in 1987, with a second vinyl pressing the following year. If you have a copy, you can tell which version you have by looking at the record label. It'll either have an 87 copyright if it's an original, or an 88 if it's a repress. Or, if you're interested in owning a copy, it's not too terribly difficult to find. I was able to pick up an incredibly clean copy of the original pressing from a collector who bought it new back in 87 and only played it once a year at Christmas. A copy in similar shape will likely set you back $20 to $30 US, plus shipping. Or, if cassettes are your thing, and I hear they're becoming more and more people's thing again, you shouldn't have a hard time finding one for under $20 shipped. The EP was never released on CD in the US, but it did receive a Japanese release in '92. These can also be found for a relatively reasonable price as long as you're not hung up on finding one with an intact obi strip. Other than those limited releases, the only other way to get these tracks, on physical media anyway, is through compilation albums. The 1996 compilation album, Fishbone 101, contains all 4 tracks, as does 2003's The Essential Fishbone. It's a Wonderful Life also appears on the 94 Christmas compilation CD, A Different Kind of Christmas, and Slick Nick You Devil You appears on a few different compilation CDs, including 95's Rock and Roll Christmas, 2015's The Classic Christmas 80s album, and the 1991 Columbia Records promo, 'Tis the Sampler, which gets extra Christmas points for the name. And with that, we'll end our Christmas Podcast Day episode and our look at Fishbone and their 1987 EP, It's a Wonderful Life. Again, I encourage everyone to head over to ChristmasPodcast.com and check out all the other amazing Christmas Podcast Day episodes. Thank you for listening to 'Tis the Soundtrack. You can find all of our past episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We don't judge, but we'd sure appreciate a like or subscribe while you're there. You can also find us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, all under the handle @TisTheSoundtrack. Our website is tisthesoundtrack.com, and you can get in touch with us via email at kevin@tisthesoundtrack.com. Our intro music is Krampus Workshop by that wizard of most everything audio, Kevin MacLeod. You can find him and his work at incomptech.com. All other music, songs, and snippets of audio used throughout this episode belong to their respective copyright holders and are used solely for the purpose of commentary. Links to all the music featured in this episode are available in the show notes or episode description for you folks on YouTube. And thank you once again, Tim and Jerry, for providing the
It's
theme.
Christmas Podcast Day.
Christmas Podcast Day.
Hey!